Territory Talk, the official podcast of the Florida Panthers, presented as always by Baptist Health, the official sports medicine provider of the Florida Panthers. And it's that time again, folks. It's time to preview round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Doug Plagens, Jameson Olive here with you as always, joined by a special guest. He's coming to us from NHL Network, and you can watch NHL Network analyst Mike Rupp on NHL Now and NHL Tonight throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. He is longtime NHLer, Stanley Cup champion, Mike Rupp, kind enough to stop by, and he's from Cleveland, which I always appreciate. Mike, thanks for stopping by here on Territory Talk again.
Oh, thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. I'm actually at NHL Network in my car, sitting here, getting ready to go in and get dialed up for the playoffs. And, man, jumping on here with you and talking what will probably be my favorite series. I'm all about it. So glad to join you.
Well, I guess just digging right into it there, you mentioned this could be your favorite series. What is it that excites you so much about another installment of the Sunshine State Showdown?
I feel like it's different. It's different now. I mean, the Florida Panthers are the team now, right? Like they're the ones that are being hunted here. I feel like this is a team that, man, over the last few years, and everybody knows that from the President's Trophy to the run last year to what we've seen this year. I love what they've built down there, and what you guys have on that ice is it's a throwback team a little bit in some ways, and I'm a big fan of that. And it's also just a well-connected group, like a solid hockey team that is going to be going against what we are all waiting for a very long time, to start building more of a rivalry in the playoffs, and that's against Tampa Bay Lightning. So and we know about the success that team's had in recent years. So, man, I love it. A little bit of hatred is always good in the playoffs, and I think we'll see plenty of that.
And Mike, on what the Panthers did last year, obviously they had to beat so many great teams to get to the final. You talk about the historically good Bruins, the Maple Leafs, the Carolina Hurricanes, but they didn't have to go through Tampa. So what are your thoughts just about them kind of having to beat, like you said, their cross-state rivals in order to kick this things off? Do you think that can help, having a game that has this much kind of magnitude and juice to it for round one?
Yeah, I think so. And I find that the playoffs are interesting because I always felt as a player too, and I don't know, maybe that's just you're trying to look at the glass half full. Even in years that I've lost in the first round, sometimes you just sit there and you're like, man, if we just could have gotten out of that round, like just getting, I'm telling you, like it's deemed amongst players, like the first round is always the most difficult, because I feel like anything can kind of go. And once you get out of that first round, I think the Panthers are a perfect example last year. Now, all of a sudden, you start getting the special feels, right? You start understanding, like, all right, well, we play connected like this, or make sacrifices like this. We can go on a pretty special run. The one big difference I see with this Panthers team, and it's last year was a magical run. They've done a great job this year of showing that, yes, that was a magical run, but we're a really good hockey club. And the difference is last year they found ways to win, and a lot of times the ice was tilted towards them, right? Like they were dealing with it in a lot of those games. And I mean, geez, you can even go back to that Carolina series. I know the results were heavily in the favor of the Florida Panthers, but the gameplay didn't necessarily look like it. But that's also what you got to do in the playoffs. You've got to find a way, and they were the epitome of finding a way last year. This year, they control games. Like they have that innate ability to come back. They've established that within this group. They're a hardworking group, but they also have developed and grown in their game, where now they're not sitting there and have to have an incredible goaltending performance and timely goals. They can control a game from the get-go. And I think that that's something really special. And that gives them probably even more of a chance to win every night, and, could set them up really well in this postseason.
And Mike, looking at what you mentioned there, the success the Panthers had last season, going through this season, going into the Stanley Cup playoffs, how much of an X factor? And it's kind of a simple thing, because we saw what he was able to accomplish last year, but you always hear drag the team into the fight. Matthew Tkachuk, a guy like that has that it factor that sometimes you can't even explain it. We saw that come to the forefront last year. What is it about his style of play that, in your mind, lends itself not only to success in the playoffs, but it's infectious throughout a team as well?
Well, he's certainly skilled. And I don't think he gets enough credit. I know guys on the ice know how good he is, guys who play against him. I mean, you see the point totals that he's put up in the last number of years and the timeliness, and he's able to elevate his game. I mean, he's a good hockey player. He is a smart hockey player, but he also, is okay with just putting the puck behind you and going and putting your face into the glass. And I find that is something unique because the high end guys, the players, they are capable of getting 100 points, generally don't bring that type of element, right? So now all of a sudden, there's certain physical attributes that can be ignored from star players on other teams. Like for an example, you could sit there and if you could be a third, fourth line guy that brings a lot of physical elements to your game, and you try to get in the face of a skilled guy, if that skilled guy is smart at all, he's going to be like, I'm not spending any time with this because you don't play as much as I do. I'm more important than you are. And what are you going to say if Matthew Tkachuk gets in your face? Because you might not be as important as he is. He is as good, if not probably better than you. So I feel like those are things that makes him even more of a headache to play against. What are you going to say? You can't have a snide remark and not confront Matthew Tkachuk. Like, you're going to have to take him head on, and that's exactly what he wants you to do. And plus, it doesn't stop there. I mean, this is a group, I think, throughout the lineup, and maybe it starts with Matthew Tkachuk, and that's something they've cultivated here since that President's Trophy winning team of that a couple years ago. Like, they're a hard team to play against. I mean, they've got a lot of guys who are going to play hard, get in your face, and do the little things. So, leads them in the fight. I don't even know how much he needs to lead him in the fight anymore, because I feel like all the guys are in the fight now. And I think that that's part of changing that culture, and they've done a great job of it.
And you talk about the fight. Sam Bennett talked about earlier this year. They have a pack mentality. Is kind of how he describes it. Have you been on teams like that? And when that's the case, when anyone gets bumped, all the dogs are in the fight. How much does that change kind of the look and feel of a team and the locker room when every guy has every guy's back?
You feel it in the room, but I even think of it more so as playing against teams like that. And I think in my career, there were some teams where, for an example, and not just and this has nothing to do with even fighting. It's just there's been some soft teams that go out and they acquire a guy individually that they're thinking, all right, that guy's going to make us a tougher team. I still remember, you guys remember George Laraque, big scary man. Really scary. I never fought him, thank God, and that was by choice. I don't want to fight him. I didn't, you know what I mean? And Montreal went out and they were a soft team. They got him. They weren't a tough team. I just needed to know when that guy was on the ice. You know what I mean? And so, but then I used to play against the Ottawa Senators. I'm sure they had Chris Neal. He was very tough, but they had every guy. You touch anybody, Mike Fisher's getting in there. Chris Kelly's getting in there. I mean, you had Jason Spezza wouldn't put up with crap. I mean, you go over to Daniel Alfredson, a Hall of Famer. Like, he's going to get in your face, give you a little face wash if you touch anybody. And that was you had a hell of a time playing against teams like that, because it wasn't like if you went to lean on an individual, you had a group leaning on you back. I mean, it's exhausting, and not many teams can kind of have that. Florida does. And I think that's something that really serves them well.
And we talk about individuals. We talked about Matthew Tkachuk, and you use the term headache. Looking at the other side, Nikita Kucherov giving everyone headaches this year, putting up almost 150 points. Yes, the Lightning are a deep team, but how much does Nikita Kucherov need to find a way to have success against the Panthers for the Lightning to win the series, and vice versa? If the Panthers can find a way to shut down Kucherov, does it become that much easier to get through round one?
I mean, yeah, if you can slow him down at all, that's going to serve you very, very well. I mean, for me, Nikita Kucherov is the MVP this year. He just is. And what he's done in Tampa, I don't know where this team would be without him. And that doesn't take away from Victor Hedman's had a Norris caliber season this year that I don't think enough people are talking about. But also on that same note, Gustav Forsling's got to be in that conversation as well. So I think that's going to be a really nice defensive matchup. But to stay with Tampa, it's if you can find a way to slow down Kucherov, I mean, he's the facilitator of everything. And you still got some problems after that. I mean, you still got this Tampa team, what's kept them alive since even when they won their cups and kept them as a contender. They've got elite talent that can take over. I mean, Vasi's that X factor, right? Like, we know that. As Steven Stamkos is going to be playing some motivated hockey, and he's looked great down the stretch here for the Lightning. So, but all of those elements outside of the net, start with 86. Nikita Kucherov. Everything goes through him. And so that's going to be the objective. It's a feisty group there in Tampa as well. They got some nice complementary pieces, but that game plan has got to be right around Nikita Kucherov.
And I got two more for you here, Mike, before we let you get going. But you mentioned Gus Forsling, and I'm glad you did because what he's done this season has maybe not always, maybe he doesn't always get the headlines, but he certainly deserves them. Plus 56 was where he finished the season. People can think what they want about the plus minus stat these days, but he's only the 5th active player and 2nd active defenseman to have a plus 50 season. Can you quantify just how difficult that is to do for a guy who's spending the whole season playing hard minutes against the other team's best players every night and to go out and post a number like that?
So here's what I think about the plus minus category to begin with. I don't put stock in it unless it's absurd one way or the other. 56 plus 50, that's absurd. You have to pay attention to that. If it's, if you're on a team and listen, if everybody else on that team is plus high 40s and 50, then no, that's a moot point. But when that's not the case, plus 56 is substantial, and he's playing against everybody, right? Like he's got to be chipping in offensively, getting involved on the offense, but also his job is to shut down the other team or slow them down offensively. He's been incredible, and it's funny. I was some of the talking with my analytics buddies when we have some battles a lot of times because I've grabbed on to some of these analytics. Some of them still I'm not fully there on, but when they plug things in their model, Gustav Forsling is a top 5 defenseman in the league right now. And what he does on a nightly basis, you guys see it. I mean, he's tough. And he blocks shots. He does whatever he needs to do for the team to win. And he's probably the most non-spoken about stud defenseman in the league right now. So, but maybe that's the way you guys want it. Keep it quiet, let him go do his job like he normally does. And usually that ends up being good results for the Panthers.
And Mike, one other thing here before we let you get going. I think Jameson's got one more as well. But if we were just going to look at the series as a whole here, you touched on a little bit when you mentioned the strengths of the Tampa Bay Lightning. But if the Panthers are going to have success here, what's the biggest key you think in the Panthers game for the 7-game series?
I mean, everybody knows this. I hate to even say it, but it's that big of a point. You got to limit the power plays you give them. I mean, the power plays that for Tampa Bay, and here's what I've always thought: you could do a hell of a job on a team 5-on-5. You can keep their goal scorers off the board, their offensive players. You can frustrate when you take penalties, and sometimes you have to, right? Sometimes you have to defend and get put in tough spots. If you just take the good penalties, don't have any offensive zone obstruction, getting your stick involved, lazy type penalties, that's free touches for these guys. So 5-on-5, like you can have a frustrated group, but you give them a power play. Guess what? They have time, they have space, they get touches. Now all of a sudden they start sticking their chest out. They're feeling good about themselves. And that's a way to that a lot of teams get back up off the mat. So as aggressive as this Panthers team is, they've got to be very, very smart. That's a dangerous power play on the other side. And if you could just curb it a little bit by not taking so many, I think you'll set yourself up good to win the series.
And Mike, last one for me. Obviously, you have your finger on the pulse of the National Hockey League as a whole, working NHL Network. You have friends around the league. Just how good do you think the Battle of Florida is for the league? We've got a taste of it before. The regular season games are always great. But now to have another round 1 matchup here when both teams are playing so well and have such stars at each end, just how good is this for the league? And how excited are you just for this matchup as a whole?
I love it. And I want to see it all the time. I know a lot of people out there want to go back to the 1 through 8. And I know there's a lot of unfriendly matchups that we see in round 1. This series is a perfect reason why I want it to stay the same. I want these to be forced rivalries. In rivalries only get to the next level with playoff competition. And so this is the reason why, a perfect reason why I love the format we have. It's great for hockey. You've got fan bases down there that are fantastic. Hockey is growing in the state of Florida. Man, it's special. It really genuinely is special. We've been waiting a long time for it. And I'm just happy the Panthers are starting to get their love in this equation too, because this has been a team that's built themselves and set themselves up really nicely.
You can watch NHL Network analyst Mike Rupp on NHL Now and NHL Tonight throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. Mike, as always, we thank you so much for your time and again, for coming back to chat with us here on Territory Talk. Again, thanks so much for being here today. We're as excited about this series as you are, and I know we all can't wait to get it going.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. Enjoy. We'll touch base down the road.
Thanks so much.